Whilst it's true that most horror films can be taken on face value, with simplistic plots often being secondary to the scares, in some instances a little digging under the grime can unearth a whole host of unanswered questions as to what really transpired. Horror movies are naturally tricksy things after all, so can you really trust what they're telling you on the surface? A closer look can often completely change the tone and themes of the film in ways never thought possible, transforming some simple hacking and slashing into a metaphor for the existential dread coursing through every moment of our puny existence, and a new perspective on life and death itself. Or something a little less dramatic, but still, as the old saying goes, it's what you don't see that scares you the most. And in this instance, that may very well be the case. Oh, and of course, we're heading straight to spoiler town with these theories, so here is your preemptive warning before we get to it. I am Professor Ash from What Culture, and these are 8 horror movie theories that change everything. 8. CLOVERFIELD. There were 2 monsters attacking the city. Long before the Cloverfield paradox made us all collectively scratch our heads, several theories regarding the original film had circulated online. The most interesting and potentially true theory, though, is that during the events of Cloverfield, there are in fact 2 monsters running amok. Director Matt Reeves revealed in an interview that at the tail end of the movie, you can see a satellite fall into the ocean, which supposedly awoke the monster and started the chain of destruction. There is then further speculation that the creature we see throughout the movie is in fact a baby, which would explain its confused and destructive nature. Throughout the film, we scarcely see the monster in full view, only catching small glimpses here and there, but more often than not, the size and appearance of the creature seems to vary. In some scenes it is taller than buildings, and in others it can easily hide itself away, which can lead to some confusion. Could it be that the creature's mother is also running rampage? The changing appearance and its ability to be in seemingly 2 places at once certainly alludes to this. 7. The Thing. There were 2 aliens, one of which was MACREADY. Much like the aforementioned Cloverfield, 1982's The Thing may also be concealing another creature amongst all the bloodshed. Fueled by the film's bleak and ambiguous ending, the internet has been abuzz with theories regarding this film for the longest time. The most popular theory is that there are in fact 2 creatures inside the base, one of which is housed inside MACREADY after he drinks from an infected bottle of scotch. If this is to be believed, then the supposed protagonist we have been rooting for this entire time was in fact the antagonist, and the journey we've gone on with this character is all a lie. Interestingly, it would also appear that the 2 aliens are actually at odds with one another, as opposed to working together to wipe out the crew. This is evidenced by MACREADY's continued efforts to expose and destroy the alien, which could all be a facade to avoid suspicion. MACREADY's laughter at the end of the film has often been viewed as a nihilistic acceptance of their fate. But what if by offering Childs the now infected scotch bottle, he was declaring his victory over the other alien that had since been destroyed? 6. The Mist. Mrs. Carmody was right, a sacrifice was needed. If you've seen The Mist, then there is no doubt that its ending is permanently seared into your brain. But what if there was a hidden meaning nestled in this nihilistic gut puncher? Towards the film's climax, religious fanatic Mrs. Carmody suggests that a sacrifice must be made in order to appease God and end their suffering, offering up protagonist David's young son Billy and his friend Amanda as the tributes. Crazy, yes, but what if Mrs. Carmody was actually right? She was unsuccessful in her bid for a blood sacrifice as David killed her and escaped with Billy, Amanda, and some others in tow. The group soon find themselves stranded in the middle of the mist and with very few options. David agrees to euthanize everyone but himself before offering himself up to the creatures outside. Moments later, the army arrives to save the day, making David's act of mercy pointless. Or was it? Could it have been that David killing Billy and Amanda did in fact trigger an act of God that saved humanity, but left David to bear this horrific burden for the rest of his life? It could be. 5. Halloween 2018. Laurie caused the bus crash that allowed Michael to escape. David Gordon Green's 2018 reboot of the Halloween series was a pitch-perfect return to form for a franchise that had run out of steam. Trimming away the fat and excising every sequel prior, this new tale was a continuation of the original film and followed Laurie Strode's troubled existence 40 years later. The trauma Laurie experienced in the original film has never truly gone away, with her paranoia approaching dangerous levels. Perhaps dangerous enough to willingly free Michael from captivity insanity so she can take revenge. Prior to Michael's escape, we see a clearly intoxicated Laurie watching him being loaded onto the prison bus. The next time we see her, she has a public meltdown in front of her family and Michael has escaped. The exact nature of how the bus crashed is never explained either, adding further fuel to the fire. We're drip-fed a lot of information throughout the film that indicates that Laurie is more mentally unstable than she lets on. She's previously had her child taken away from her due to endangerment, and the sheer amount of weapons and booby traps she has strewn around her home is alarming. It's tenuous, but it does make sense, doesn't it? 4. Friday the 13th series. Each film's Jason is a different person. Whilst on the surface, this one sounds a little ludicrous, given that Jason Voorhees is such an emblematic character for the franchise, it begins to make sense when you peel back the layers. Aside from the original film and Part 5, Jason has always been the masked maniac cutting up horny teenagers. Or so we thought, as this series suggests that every Jason we have seen across the series is a different, stabby maniac. The biggest indication to this theory's validity is that Jason's height, build, and general appearance changes quite drastically between films. The most obvious of which is his transition from long-haired, backwoods hermit in Part 2 to a muscular bald man in Part 3. That change wouldn't seem so drastic if the two films weren't supposed to happen over the course of 2 days. It's possible that the woods surrounding Crystal Lake are home to more than one deranged killer, or that there is something inherently supernatural that drives people to madness. Whilst this can be hastily explained away by the Friday the 13th series' complete disregard for concrete continuity, it does add an interesting dimension to what is otherwise a fairly straightforward set of slasher films. 3. Evil Dead series. Ash loses his mind midway through Evil Dead 2, and the remainder of the films are just a hallucination. Being trapped in a cabin with malevolent spirits and the reanimated corpses of your now deceased best friends is nobody's idea of a quaint summer break. Understandably, the lovable Ash Williams goes a little crazy during the events of Evil Dead 2. I suppose you'd feel the same if you had to chainsaw your own girlfriend to death after watching all of your other friends be slaughtered, but I digress. Halfway through the film, Ash stops dead before having a mental breakdown. His maniacal laughing is accompanied by all manner of furniture moving and joining in with him, laughing along to a sick joke that nobody ever said. Ash quickly brings it to a halt and snaps himself back to reality. Or did he? Throughout the rest of its runtime, Evil Dead 2 gets progressively nuttier and stranger, even culminating in an ending where Ash is thrown back in time to the Middle Ages. This ending did lead to the wonderfully bonkers Army of Darkness, but that being said, could this all just be a fabrication of a man who has simply snapped? 2. The Blair Witch Project. Michael and Josh lured Heather into the woods to murder her. The Blair Witch Project is no stranger to bizarre fan theories, ranging from ideas of time travel to group psychosis. But the most interesting and plausible of these theories is rooted firmly in reality. Throughout the course of the film, tensions between Michael, Joshua, and Heather escalate to near physical levels. Insults are hurled and references to past events between them are brought to the surface, leading to fractures in their dynamic. Whilst this is never fully explained in the film itself, earlier drafts of the script, as well as Heather's online diary, allude to Heather and Josh being romantically involved at one point, but the whole affair turned ugly. The fact that we never see anything truly supernatural occur in the film also makes you wonder whether all of the supposed spooky shenanigans were actually real, or just fabrications by Michael and Josh to scare Heather. The infamous final shot of the film supports this theory too. Did Josh stand in the corner to distract Heather whilst Michael attacked her from behind? These questions are never answered, and there is plenty of evidence to support that maybe the whole setup was simply an elaborate setup to kill Heather. 1. The Witch. There was no witch, and the family were driven crazy by spoilt crops. Robert Eggers' folktale Creepfest, The Witch, is one of last decade's best and most celebrated horror films, partly due to its dense atmosphere and excellent character studies found throughout. After William and his family are banished from a Puritan colony over a religious dispute, they begin a new life on a small patch of farmland, surrounded by some foreboding woods. It's not long before their newborn child vanishes and the family begin to suspect that a witch resides in the woods who means to bring them harm. Whilst it's easy to just accept the supernatural goings-on, there may be something else causing all the intense paranoia. Early in the film, it's referenced that the crops the family grow are of poor quality and infested with fungus, which Eggers has said is ergot, a hallucinogenic rot. If the family were to be consuming the fungus, then the chances that they may be under the influence of psychedelics, causing them to believe that there was a witch plaguing them, become all too high. This theory suggests that all of the death, destruction, and tragedy was caused by a shared psychosis. And whilst it's certainly up for debate, it feels very natural given the film's grounded approach to its subject matter throughout. And that's our list. Which of these theories changed everything for you? Do you agree with them? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.